Begin. So welcome to Morning Minutes with myself, Michael Bergio, and Mark Novak. And we were just saying before that it's Warren Buffett's quote about passion is really relevant at the moment, as we see a transfer of energy between how people invest with shares, property, and then even if you take a bit closer within property, commercial and residential, where we're quite fortunate where we've got a really good view as a company, as we do a lot of commercial property and we do a lot of residential property. And I'm seeing a lot of confidence in residential and none in commercial. So, Mark, how does that Warren Buffett quote relate to what we're sort of seeing at the moment? Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Anmal. Jeff Luby. Always a pleasure having you guys on.
Hey, guys. Look, at the moment, the biggest question we're getting asked from people every phone call. So I've got 45 agents in the office, and every single time we pick up the phone, the first 3 to 5 minutes is consumed with how is it going in real estate? What's happening in real estate? You know, is it going to be hard to sell our property? Is it going to be hard to rent our property? That's the first thing we get asked. So I think to address that is really important. And then I think to understand that and the direction it's going is even more important. So what's the general conversation you're having, Michael, or your general response when you're talking with sellers, buyers, tenants, landlords?
Yeah, so I think it's always related to properties a long-term investment, 5 years, 10, 15, 30, 50 years. There's always going to be periods within that time frame that it's better to buy compared to other times, better to sell. We're always shifting from a buyer's market to a seller's market. The fundamental thing is the long-term asset that's what the plan is. You're not playing the short game. And then especially now with what's going on with coronavirus, where we've had similar things happen many times in the cycle, even in the last few years. Like we've had elections, royal commissions, we've had a lot of things external to the property market, which are where you could say confidence is not high on where the economy is going, but they all sort of come and go. The bushfires came and go, the royal commission comes and goes. It always sort of comes and goes. The one thing we always urge going, well, when everyone's saying don't buy, that's the perfect time to buy because you got less competition out there. So, and then with sellers, it can, especially with sellers, with that off the back of that, we say, well, let's say if you sell for 10 grand less, you're probably buying for 10 grand less. So let's look at what your position is.
I think it's important that the things you've mentioned, some of those have goalposts or an end light at the end of the tunnel. Some of those definitive, finite, and some of those do not. So when we're going through the GFC, it's like, man, are we ever going to come out of this, or are we truly stuffed? Yes. The good news about an election is let's get to that date. After that date, we're going to be good. And I think the good thing about Corona is there is a fixed time frame, relatively fixed. It's not a date, but it's certainly, people know that it's probably, we've got to bide time for probably 3 months, 4 months, and then we're going to come out of the other end. That's the good news. Now, to get through that and looking at what experienced investors are doing and have done in the past, we look to the great Warren Buffett, probably the best investor of this century, and some of his famous quotes, and relating those back to what we've just spoken about and what we've seen. And one of those ones, what's that quote this morning that we've got, Michael?
Yeah, it's without passion, you don't have energy. Without energy, you have nothing.
Okay. So look, the energy is really, really important. A lot of people that I'm talking with, I'm towards the end of the conversation, people go to me, you know what, I've never actually thought of it that way. And this is what I'm saying to people. Basically, we're all witnessing energy come out of certain places, and we're all like crazy.
Yeah,
I
like
think,
the share market, for instance.
yeah,
Like the share
okay,
market.
share market, public events.
Yep.
We've got a client in the CBD that does functions in the CBD of Sydney that have had all their functions cancelled, and it's very interesting. That's very, very clear. The energy's come out of that, but
Yep.
like the great Einstein says, where energy is transferred, it doesn't disappear. So
Yes.
what's actually happening is the energy. What we have to remember as a real estate industry is if the energy is coming out of a certain sector, it's going into other sectors. It's going into other sectors. Now, if you can read that play, that's where you're actually going to do well, either with your confidence, either with your understanding, or with your investing and with your money. So you're going to do well. So it's very, very clear. And allow me to give you an example. It's very. I got a friend of mine that's in. He does scenting for pubs, clubs, casinos.
Yeah.
Public.
Scenting.
Scenting. So he puts a nice smell into the casino area.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Right. So what's a guy going to do like that? Because all the public event places don't need scenting for the next couple of months, right? Yep. So what's he going to do? He's going to turn around and look at the necessity or where the energy is going, and where the energy is going for him is air sanitizing.
Yeah, like you got two options there, don't you, Mark? You can either say the world's fucked, I'm doing nothing, curl up in a ball, or look at where there's other opportunities, and that's exactly right. And that's where people have that option.
So get this. So he's got the ability to sanitize air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everyone's concerned about sanitation. Everyone wants to buy sanitation gel for their hands. People are going to happily have air sanitizing. So, when pubs and clubs are coming back to full force and they're saying, we've got air sanitation and these are the papers, because it's because of their public spaces, they have to have, there's a special certification they have to have. That's moving the energy away from one sector into another sector, accommodating the market. That's what we're doing in real estate. That's what people have to do.
And just like a simple analogy to bring it out of real estate, let's say you play soccer 6 nights a week and then the soccer season's finished, you play cricket. It's a very simple, you're doing one thing, changes, then you're on another. So what we're seeing now with our comments, the commercial property market is ripe for picking. I probably haven't seen probably a worse commercial market than now. Probably the most regular conversation I have with people, buyers and landlords, is because especially sellers, they just assume because the residential market is going very strong, they just assume the commercial market's very strong. But I bring it back to let's take a step back of where the growth has been for residential. That's off the back of low interest rates. Now, we have low interest rates because the economy is not strong. Now, the economy is small business. Now, and small businesses are in your warehouses, are in your office spaces. And when times aren't strong or good, they're not opening up a second location. They're not taking on a bigger premises. They're not moving. They're just focusing on staying around and not crumbling. So the commercial market is probably the worst it's ever been because we're not having that. Days on market is 6 months, 9 months. I'm shocked it came in fast because we don't have the transaction turnover like residential, where you can see the pattern of if there's 10 units selling every month, you can sort of see the up and down. But if you've only got one every quarter and then that doesn't sell and you've got to roll over for another quarter, it's almost 9 months before you see it. And I reckon we're at that part where I look back and I'm like, shit, it's very bad. But there are people out there that need to sell and want to sell because they're always either buying something else and they understand they're selling for less, but they're buying for less. They're moving things around. So like this is now the perfect time to be looking at those markets because like you're looking residential and you hear 100 over reserve, 200 over reserve, like that hasn't happened in 2 years, 3 years. So why focus on that highly competitive market at the moment when there's a great opportunity where no one's looking at commercial? Yes, the asset has to be rented, and if that market,
that's the big one.
Strong,
that's the big one. That's why they're not doing well.
Yeah, but instead of buying a property for $1 million that you need rented, buy something for $500,000 that you can have it empty, because you're going to have this property for 30 years and it will come out of this cycle in maybe 1 year, 3 years, but you've bought really well. So that would be my advice. If you could buy for 2 mil, buy for 1. If you buy for 1, buy for $500,000, because of you will have potential vacancies. So that's where I'd be looking. And even something that's tenanted. A year ago, when
you're saying enjoy the vacancy because you're going to get good capital growth.
You get great capital growth, and then you also get further growth when it's tenanted,
and a cheap buy.
Yeah, and a cheap buy. So
enjoy the vacancy because you're going to get a cheap buy.
Correct. So that's where I think people should be looking, and for those reasons.
And also enjoy the low interest rate environment, because your interest rates now, I was looking at them yesterday. Macquarie Bank is doing a 5-year fixed rate at 2.7%.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's exactly right. Money's never been so cheap. So your holding costs
7%.
Yeah. Your holding costs are so low compared to what it is. You can almost afford to have it vacant. So I think that's the big one. You got to transfer your energy into probably a commercial market, which doesn't have the competition and the competitiveness as residential does at the moment.
Enjoy the vacancy.
Yep.
Enjoy the vacancy. Enjoy the low prices. Enjoy the low interest rates. If you can get someone in there, something also to really have a look at is the sectors that are prospering. Because, like I said, it's not necessary that there's less businesses. They're different types of business.
Yeah.
And again, allow me to give you an example. I was thinking the other day, we had a property on the market for quite a while, which was a super freezer. A super freezer. And then I was talking to a client yesterday, and the client said, "Mate, we're sold out of freezers." I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, secondhand freezers, brand new freezers. People are buying freezers. I said, "They're buying freezers to store food." He said, "They are."
Yeah, good point.
They're stockpiling. And I said, "That's pretty incredible, because the next thing that's going to go is there's big freezers. So the little freezers are selling out. Now the big freezers are going to rent out. And we've got a couple of those for sale at the moment." And that a client of mine that I was talking about, I was saying a great industry to be in is stockpile food.
Yeah. The food that lasts. If you're selling something that lasts 6 months, then...
Yeah. But the problem is, when you buy stockpile food, you've got to freeze the stockpile food.
Yeah,
and you need room. So I was saying to a client of mine, sell stockpile food, like trays of food that can be frozen, fresh. Mm-hmm. They're fresh. You can eat it now, or you can freeze it. I said, Sell it to them for an extra 20% and tell them you'll freeze it for up to 12 months for them.
Yeah, good point.
So it's just that transfer of energy, guys, where you've just got to look at, you understand where it's coming out of.
Yep.
And understand where it's going into, and don't fall into a false economy, because toilet paper is a false economy, because the toilet paper people know that they're not making that much money, because that money has to last them for 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. So it's not like they've had a surge of funds in the last month, but if you've got a year's toilet paper, you're not going to be buying any more. So they can't now look at, let's say they normally do $10 a month and they've done $60 this month. They're not going to do probably 60 next month, and they may not even do the 10. They'll do 2, and the next month they may do 3. Like they've had their year income right now, so it's up to them to adapt to that.
Correct.
And invest that wisely.
So the meal that they're eating has to last them a year, not not tonight. So I think, and people are clever enough with their stockpiling to pull that food out back out of the freezer and eat it, and not buy it again, not buy it
Yeah.
twice or three times. So
Yes.
I think that there's wonderful spending going on. Everyone's saying Woolies and Coles are making a fortune. Well, not really, because that pipe of income that's being earned has to be actually pushed over a longer period when the virus is over, and the virus will be over.
It's so true. They're if anything, it's obviously they're going to be fine handling that cash flow because business at that level. But there's plenty of small businesses who may be having a product that is in high demand at the moment, and
Yes,
they may not be as smart and savvy with that. It's like you have an investment property and your tenant pays you your full year in advance, and you go on a spending spree, but
correct,
then you think,
spot
like,
on.
what happens in a year? Like you find it with people who get paid monthly a lot. I know a lot of buddies, they get paid monthly. They live like kings for the first week of the month, and then they're like peasants on the last week. So that's probably the best way to look at it. Be sensible.
And which potentially is going to lift a lot of people up right now and drop them on their ass really
Yeah.
hard over the next 3 to 6 months. So
And
we've got to be careful with our cash. Now, something I want to be passionate about. I know we're talking about property and commercial property, but we are Northern Beaches agents. Something I feel really strongly about is supporting your local.
yes,
There's a lot of
local
businesses, guys.
pharmacy, local deli, your local
Yeah,
meat producer.
yeah,
And I think
that,
you'd be surprised how many local suppliers there are. Like, yes, it is easy to go to Coles and it's a one-stop shop, but there are a
yeah,
lot of great suppliers and wholesalers, say within Brookvale, where you can get your veggies and your meat, and you get phenomenal service. Like they remember your name. You're great. They'll custom it for you, and
yeah.
I really like that. Like I'll go somewhere that treats me like a person rather than a number ticket. Yes, it
So I
may be
think
more
for
driving, but
survival of these commercial businesses, I think we've really got to underpin our community, and I
yeah,
think that it's not, I get that you want to eat your meal at home and you don't want to go to the restaurant, but ring the restaurant and ask them to Uber Eats the meal out to you one night a week, just for the sake of supporting a local, rather
yeah,
than eating the frozen McCain's French fries.
yeah. I
Um,
find we're all quick to blame the government for the economy, but we've got to really look in the mirror and go, where are you doing your shopping? If you're doing it all, say, at Coles and you've never
yeah,
once gone to your local corner store, then like you're part of the problem, and
you
that's where
are.
we need to shift our spending. We need to be spending. If you look
We
at
do.
the tax reliefs for the coronavirus, a lot of it was based on they still want you to spend. You got to spend and you get the benefit. There are some cash injections. It was really someone wrote a really good article. I read it on that. I'll post it here. There's $17 billion relief package. A lot goes to medical, but also a lot goes to small business. And Mark, what advice do you have to other agents out there and principals where I think we had our first excuse? I don't think excuse is the right word, but tenant use the virus as an excuse not to pay rent. But I got to stress, guys, the owners still have their mortgage to pay. The banks haven't said don't worry about paying us. So, like, what's the advice out there to
I
landlords?
still think the local thing. I think it's really grassroots stuff. That if you're going to circumvent or choke intentionally a local business that you love, you're going to suffer in the future, because
Yeah,
that business is not going to be there. So I think with people's habitual spending, I think everyone gets that you don't want to catch the virus, but I
yeah,
think you got to keep your habits up, and I think you got to keep your spending up, and if you can, if you've still
yeah,
got a job. And I think support those guys. My local favourites, Lavotti's in DY,
yeah,
Fuel Cafe in Brookvale. There's suppliers that I could potentially, we've got over 150 suppliers to our business, and I looked at it the other day, there was 50 we could get rid of, and it's like, no, these guys are great, and I want them to stick around. I've got to keep spending. So I think I think people have to be super conscious about continuing to buy their coffee from the local, continuing to buy products. If there's anything you're going to get done around the home, you're going to shop at Bunnings to get stuff done. Get stuff done. I think still. I certainly don't put a choker on local businesses, because they're not going to be there for you in a year's time, and then you're going to be whinging, for the next 3, 5, 6, 7 years because how good they were.
That's so true. Like how many people complain about empty shops on Pittwater Road, say DY, but how often do you go in there and buy anything? You go on to Westfields, seriously. So I think we all need to look at our spending habits, and just saying that transfer of energy, instead of putting that energy in the big conglomerate. What's the word? Conglomerates. Look at your local, transfer the energy out of that to there. Shares, property, it's gone out of shares, it will go in property. And we're saying there's great opportunities in commercial compared to where a lot of the focus and energy is in residential at the moment. This little commercial is being forgotten. There's great opportunities there.
And people are still shopping, but they're shopping for certainty.
Yep.
They're shopping for certainty. So, the uncertainty, they have happily cut that fat out of their life. And, travel, conferencing, they're things that they actually can do without. So they got rid of it. And they're shopping for certainty, long life products, a home above their a roof above their head, and stuff like that. So continue to shop certainty. It's a very, very good thing. But I think to understand that, and again, another conversation I had yesterday was everyone was worried about computers taking people's jobs. What the hell happened to that problem? I'll tell you what happened to that problem. The computers did take the labor force out. It did get rid of the jobs, but then it went over the technology sector, and there's more jobs out there than ever. Yeah. So we're not in production lines doing labor anymore. That's all automated now, but we're more educated. We've got computers doing stuff, and the technology sector and the media sector is pumping. So that's a perfect example of the transfer of energy. And when we're understanding commercial properties, we're understanding where commercial's going, I think it is an excellent time to enjoy your vacant. Buy at a low price a commercial property, buy at a low interest rate a commercial property, and enjoy the vacancy, because you enjoying the vacancy is actually going to help buy the property lower and going to help get the interest. That's why your interest rate's so low, because some of these properties are vacant. But Michael, how many out of the commercial properties in the Northern Beaches, how many are there?
What was that, sorry?
How many commercial properties on the Northern Beaches?
For sale or in general?
Just full stop, like commercial, industrial.
I think it's about 6,000. 1,600.
Okay.
How
many are vacant?
I don't know. There's 750 for lease.
Okay, so the vacancy is probably 10%. Sitting at about
10% vacant.
12% vacant. Okay, there you go. But hang on a second. A lot of those are repeats.
Yeah, there would be a lot that would be multiple agents, so it's probably closer to 500.
Okay, so we're probably about 8% of the Northern Beaches commercial industrial properties are vacant.
Compared to residential, which is under 1. It's a big, yeah.
Okay.
Vacancy for commercial, residential is 1%, and yeah, commercial is about 10%, 8 to 10.
I like your numbers.
Beautiful, love numbers. So I think it's a good opportunity. What's Andrew saying here? All that has happened is their revenue has been brought forward. Yep, that's relating to Coles and Woolies. A lot of people.
Yep.
It's not extra revenue. Very good point. It's not extra. It's just brought forward.
Not extra.
Highlight some of the local businesses in your social media posts as how close they are. It may be to your property. Yeah, just always help expose and market businesses. Now, well, look at that way. A lot of energy won't be of people coming into your store. So you can either do nothing, or you could focus that energy into marketing and how you can get from your product from your store to their homes. If people aren't walking into your door, put some energy into how you can get it to them. that's a good way to be focusing. If you weren't online, if you had a business and you weren't online now, you have to be online, because if people aren't out on the streets,
Just about
they're
to
not
say
going to
that.
see you.
Just about to say that. If you've
Yeah.
got a friend or family that's very proud of not being digital, not having digital, not
You
having
won't
their
have a
business on,
business soon.
yeah, I think if you can help that friend, that's good. You know what I mean? Like if you can help and say, look, let's sit down and I'll get your Insta account, your Facebook account, your LinkedIn account going. I'll help you with some posts. Get those businesses
Yes.
hyper digital, because the amount of digital that's been consumed in the last week or two has just gone like that.
Huge, yeah.
Has just gone. He's just skyrocketed up because people are at home more. They're at home more.
Yep. Alrighty, I think that's a wrap. It's almost 30 minutes.
Big topic.
All good.
Commercial property takeouts are support your local.
Yeah, support local. It's not extra money into the market. It's just revenue brought forward. So be smart. If you've been fortunate enough to have a year's revenue in 1 month, be smart. Focus where people are not focusing in buying. For example, everyone's on residential at the moment. Look at commercial, where there's no one
Enjoy the
looking.
vacancy.
Buy cheaper, enjoy the vacancy so you can hold it, and play the long game is a big one.
Yep.
Play the long game.
Yep. Giddy up.
Giddy up. All good, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
God bless Warren Buffett.
Yes. Bye-bye.
See you, man. Bye.